This call is now being recorded.
Okay, Adam, well, thanks so much for taking a little time out to chat today. And I wanted to ask you first if you could sort of tell me about the show. What kind of, do you change your set list up regularly? Do you kind of lock it in? How does it work for you guys?
Set list changes every night. We don't make it till about dinner time that night. Usually about after sound check sometime, I'll send a text out to the whole band, also to the crew, opening band if we're good friends, and it just says anything you want to play tonight, anything you want to hear. Then I get a bunch of texts back, and I, make notes of all of it. And then Ibby and I sit down and we decide what we want to play that night. We don't necessarily follow the texts as a rule, but they're good for suggestions. I mean, after all, what's better to play on a given evening than something somebody really wants to play? So we change it every night. There's nothing that's really sacred about a set except for people have to want to play it.
Mm-hmm. And I know for this show you're also giving the audience this live album, so why did you decide to do that?
Well, it was a really great year touring for us the past year, and we wanted to document it, and we record everything we do. So we went back, and all of us sort of helped out listening to shows, and we found our favorite tracks from a bunch of different shows. And we put it out to go along with I think in Australia it was an addition to a bonus disc on the Underwater Sunshine record. In Europe and England it was a separate CD that we sold on the tour. We just thought it was a really great kind of record, and we wanted to do something with it, and someone came up with the idea of giving it away as a download with ticket sales, and that seemed like a really good idea to me. I mean, no one knows what the rule is or what the magic bullet is for succeeding in the music business right now. So yeah, the nice thing about being independent is you're free to try things. Things whether, sometimes what you want with your music is just for people to hear it. Other times you want to, increase your email list, or there's a lot of ways to do it, but I don't think anyone knows what the formula is anymore, if they ever did. And, so we try a lot of different stuff.
So the end game isn't necessarily just to try and sell records or sell music or whatever. There's a whole bigger picture thing in mind.
Well, the end game is to sell music. It's just a question of how you're going to sell it. Are you going to sell it at a concert, or are you going to sell it in a record? Do both. Is the best way to sell music by increasing your audience, which you might do by giving away downloads. I mean, it's always just to sell music, but I don't think anybody knows for sure what the best way to do that is anymore. And so we try it. And, ideas are the best thing about the internet and independent music is the freedom to try any idea anybody has. You don't have to. There's no reason not to do something. So, try lots of things. I kind of thought it was a great idea. I don't remember anybody giving away records before with that often.
I'm sorry, was the last thing you said? I'm sorry, the call broke up a little bit. The call broke up a little bit. You said you thought it was great.
I don't remember anybody doing it. No one had ever come up with the idea for me before, and I thought it was a great idea.
And so, do you think you'll be previewing any new material I think you're going into the studio later this year, perhaps? Is that right?
Yeah, we will. Oh, what was the question? Are we going to the studio later this year?
Well, the first question was, will you be doing any new songs that maybe could be on your next record? And are you going into the studio? So it's kind of a two-part question.
Yeah, we're planning on going to the studio later on this year. I don't know about the new material during shows. I mean, I don't make decisions on shows ahead of time. I really have no idea what we're going to do on any given night. I mean, if something's going well and we like it, we sound check every day so we can rehearse stuff, work on material that people want to play, and work on new songs. So if something comes along, I don't see why we wouldn't play it. We've always done it in the past. It's just a good way to work on material. But, I don't really know about that.
Yeah, I mean, some people, some artists don't like to play songs that are works in progress. They want to sort of hold them until they're really done, and other people like to sort of try them out and see how they're doing. So I just was curious, what approach you guys took. So.
It depends on how I feel about it being a work in progress. If I feel like it can be good played in the show, I would try it in the show. I mean, I don't really mind people hearing it or recording it. It's just whether it's actually ready to be played that way or not. I mean, everything's a work in progress until it's not. You know what I mean? Until you record it, you never know when a song is really done until you finish it.
Yeah. And so, are you sort of in an active writing mode then right now? Do you write when, certain times? Or are you always working on songs? How's the creative process work for you?
I go in and out of it. I will not write for long periods of time, and then I'll write. But I've been working a lot. I was working on a play, so I was writing for that for a while. It's taken a little bit to switch back. It's hard to shift from one to the other.
I'm sorry, you said you were working on what?
I was working on a play for a while, and so that's one of the reasons I did the covers album last year, because I didn't want to write for two things at once. It wasn't that I wasn't writing, I just was writing for something different. And I didn't want to write for two things at the same time. So I'm shifting back to writing for the band now.
And is the play being produced, or?
We haven't finished it yet. We did it. We were invited to the Ojai Playwright Conference, which is a pretty prestigious writers conference, like a year and a half ago, and we produced half of it there. Worked on it at the conference, and then produced it there, half of it, and it was, people flipped out. It was really good. But I don't know. It's not really ready. My co-writer, he's busy too. He's a pretty successful stage playwright, and but he's also been directing films of some of his scripts lately. So he's done 2 films since we started working on it. And that, getting a time when both of us can work on something is kind of difficult.
And so when you're writing, how do you approach the material now that you've been doing this for somewhat 20 years and as a well-known person? Is it different to write about your life, the songs? Are they, do you think about, the fact that you're well-known and how a song might impact the public, or do you sort of write what you would write anyway? Like, how has the process sort of evolved for you?
I don't think it's any different, really. I mean, you write about your life. My life is different than it was, but you're still just writing about your life. But, it's not autobiographical. You're writing about how you feel about things. I don't think it's really changed at all. It's just maybe a different subject matter, If you live in New York, maybe you write songs about New York. If you lived in L.A., I wrote songs about L.A. I wrote songs before I was famous and songs after I was famous. That doesn't really change. The subject matter might. But do you mean when you're talking about people hearing it, do you mean like now that a lot of people are going to listen to your record, does it change the way you write it? Is that what you meant?
Yeah, well, just the idea of when you're an unknown, you write a record, and then in the case of your band, you've got a big record early on, and then all of a sudden you're famous and you're writing these different records, and and now it's 20 years later, and you're writing new songs, and I I didn't know and people, I think, at various times have tried to figure out if the song is about a certain relationship you were in, or what something that was going on in life, and your life is more headline generating, as opposed to when you were not very well known and people didn't necessarily know or couldn't guess as much. So I just was curious how that all that stuff floating around, whether that is something that you think about, don't think about, or whatever.
No, not really. I don't think I wrote any differently on the second album than I did on the first album. Or anyone since then. It's still just your life. Maybe your life is more embroiled in other people's concerns about it, but in that case, maybe that turns into a subject matter, but I don't think it would change the way you write or anything. That's like, I think people think over much about whatever, this sort of mythical thing of pressure that the world puts on you. Who cares? It doesn't really seem to me like there was any difference between the first album and the second album. The second album was a lot better. But we've always had kind of the total freedom to do things our own way, even when we were making the first album. We had complete creative freedom from the label in the deal, and we traded a huge amount of money away to get that. But it was something we always took advantage of. We always made the records we wanted to make, and that was really important to us. It kept us interested. I mean, I know I've said this a lot of times to people, but like when you sell 10 million records with your debut and T-Bone Burnett, they don't want you to go find the guy who makes the Pixies records to do your next record, and that's the number one record. They're not really excited about you going to find the people who did the Sparkle Horse records to make your third, but it didn't really. I realized that more in retrospect, like in hindsight, but at the time it's like I just didn't really care. We were always like, even with T-Bone, for us at that moment, it was just, that's what we felt like doing. That's who we thought was going to help us make a good first record. And when we thought Gil Norton would help us make a good second record, that's what we did. We sort of never really, it wasn't until later that I realized just, people were very curious about how we'd gotten to do those things. But we sort of, we got the creative control in the beginning, and we sort of never thought about it after that. We just sort of had it, and, we used it. I don't know.
And now that you're independent, I guess it's even easier. Just as you have, you really have the control to do what you want to do and how you see fit with the recording. And
no, I mean creatively, it's exactly the same. It's just the difference is if you want to do something like give away a live record with tickets, that's different. We would have had to had a talk with the. Well, actually, we were okay. We carved live stuff out of our deal with the label, so we could have done that whenever we wanted to. But in general, the only difference really is it's more business stuff, with like what we're allowed to do in marketing and what we're allowed to do in downloads and things like that. Just sort of freedom with that stuff, so we don't have to get someone's approval for it. But the creative stuff hasn't really changed at all because we were always kind of doing our own thing where that was concerned. So that's pretty much the same.
And what about in terms of how you interact with the other members of the band? How is the relationships, or I guess they've deepened over the years. How does that sort of affect the music and what you guys do?
I know you fight over stuff, but that's just because it's important. That's always been true. I think it was much harder in the beginning because I was really shitty at being a band leader. Well, it's like learning to be in charge and learning to be a leader. That doesn't just. You're not just born doing it. It's at a certain point I decided to take over. And that was difficult. It was really hard when everybody else, but mostly because I was so bad at it. You don't know how to exert authority properly unless you've done it for a while, and I was very bad at it. Like I think a lot of people are. And the nice thing is that everyone was pretty tolerant at the time, or, at least pretty convinced that, where I was trying to go creatively was a good thing. I think they've all forgiven me for that over time. But I got a lot better at it. We've been doing this for a long time together. There's a lot of mutual respect there. I've never really been the kind of guy who was interested in being a solo artist. It just didn't interest me. I like the jazz of being in the band. And I think the guys understand that. It's probably pretty obvious. So there's a lot of mutual respect. So we fight all the time about shit. But you kind of got to, because you care about stuff. It's hard to, that's why bands fall apart, is because people fight about stuff and they make it personal. We really try not to do that. At this point, after all this many years, it's not like you've all become exactly what everybody wants you to be and you're well-behaved all the time. It's just that anyone who's really an asshole is not here. And at this point, you have enough that you like about people that the things you don't like about them are just part of their personality. And there's something you don't like about everybody in the band. For all of us, I'm sure. But at this point, it's outweighed by all the good stuff. Especially when you play many gigs, it's easy to be reminded of what the good stuff is because, you go up on stage and do it every night. So the fights don't really, they're just creative stuff. I think we're a very collaborative band. And that comes with a lot of, collaboration is disagreement. There's no other way to look at it, and you have to disagree, otherwise you're not going to get your opinion heard, and then the song's not as good as it could have been. The song's always going to be better if somebody fights me on something and we realize they were right. Because that means that there's an idea that we wouldn't have used that gets used. That's always better for your music. It's not a democracy, but it's a happily benevolent dictatorship, I suppose.
And now, a few years ago when the band took a little break, I think you were having some personal issues. So what happened then, and how are things are better now, I guess?
We didn't really take much of a break. I mean, I was kind of dealing with being crazy, which I've been dealing with for many, many years. We didn't really take any time off, though. But, I mean, everyone sort of suffered through it with me. As they always had. The only difference was that time I talked about it in public. I just hadn't really wanted to talk about mental illness before that. Not very common. And especially when things were going worse, and it was more out of control, I didn't really want to talk about it. And then I felt like I got a little better handle on things, and I didn't mind.
So you felt more comfortable sort of being open about what was going on with you?
Well, it didn't seem like it was worth doing when things were falling apart. When I was like really losing it, I felt like you just become a public spectacle, you know. I felt like I got things a little turned around in the middle of making Saturday nights and Sunday mornings. I think that my hesitation in talking about it before had caused a lot of misunderstanding about what songs and records were about. And since that record was so intimately about dealing with mental illness in some ways, I felt okay talking about it, so I did.
And you're in a sort of better place right now.
I don't know. You know, it's a weird thing I learned to live with. You know, I don't know that it's better. I don't think it's a lot worse. I don't think it's worse. You know, I think I kind of got a handle on it, so it wasn't like sliding down a hole anymore. I don't know if it's better. I kind of learned to live with it sometimes. It's pretty unpleasant, but I'd say I'm a little more on stable ground these days.
And is it something that you write about in a song, or is it not something that you sort of want to go there, or you know?
But it's in all my songs.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of life. I mean, right. It's certainly part of mine. I mean, it's in a lot of the songs. I think that's what was not understood about them, was what was actually going on in my head at the time. I think it just seemed like a series of songs about falling in love, and there's a little more to it than that.
Right. Okay. The last thing I just wanted to talk about is the touring at the Wallflowers. How did you guys decide to go out on the road with them? I guess you've known them for a long time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I met Jake when I was bartending at the Viper Room, probably 95, maybe, a long time ago. I hadn't seen these guys in a long time, though. And somebody just called up and said they were going out this summer, and did we want to take them out? And I thought they'd be great opening for us. You know, I've been doing a lot of work with bloggers the last few years with my friend like Ryan Spalding, who runs Ryan Smashing Life. And we do these indie showcases at CNJ and South by Southwest for, you know, independent bands. We try to showcase a lot of new music, and we've been sort of taking that on the road with Counting Crows, either taking like the whole festival out as a touring festival opening for Counting Crows, or taking different bands from it out. But mostly the last few years, we've taken bands from the Outlaw Roadshow on the road, and it's been kind of a blast. But it's a lot more work because you're doing a lot of work promoting the bands and trying to this summer I just wanted to go out for a little while because I want to write and I want to get ready to try and record. So I just didn't want as much of a heavy commitment. So when someone suggested the Wallflowers tour, that seemed like a lot better. It seemed like easier. It's kind of a no-brainer tour. If you like that, you know, come see the bands. Wasn't so much complicated work. It seemed like a good tour.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's everything I wanted to ask you today, so thanks so much. Appreciate you taking all the time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Take care. Okay. Thanks, Natasha.
Hey, Adam, all